I suppose I've always fished for eels ever since I was younger, because when I fished the docks, that was the only fish I could catch in there. And even when I was a kid, I wanted to catch a big eel, and the biggest one I could. And then 50 years later, I'm still trying to catch the biggest eel I can. Even though I've now caught the record, I still don't think it's the biggest eel. I mean, there's lakes out there that could hold fish to 15 pound. It's the unknown that keeps me fishing for eels. It's not how big they get, it's just that I don't know what I'm going to catch each time I get a take. There's, you know, people say to you, is there a preference to where you would fish for big eels? And my answer to that is no, really, because eels haven't got a preference. They can be in a duck pond, which was Gary Mason's 10-7, he caught all them years ago. And then you've got Steve Pitt's fish, which was, you know, from a great big water. You know, I haven't got a preference. If I hear rumours of where eels come from, or there's a story of a big eel from somewhere, then I'll have a look, maybe investigate. The water I've just caught my fish from, a good friend of mine phoned me up who lives 150 miles away and told me about a lake in my own backyard that I didn't even know about, that had big fish in it. I come down here and I caught big fish. That's how easy it can be sometimes. I've had 2 books published, both on eel fishing, and they're both quite different in content. But there's no real magic potion to catching big eels. Sometimes, you know, you can just go there and cast out a worm and you'll catch one. Other times, you've got to put work in. There could be one swim on the whole lake that produces eels. It's just a matter of time on the bank and being lucky. Yeah, that's the biggest element. If you're fishing and you know what you're doing, then when the fish come on the feed, you can take advantage of it. You know, I don't think I spent a lot of time in the Colne Valley, spending days and days down there and not catching fish. And then I've caught some of my biggest fish in a lake that's nice and easy to fish. You know, we can all say, you know, how hard eel fishing is, catching big eels, but it's still just being down to in the right place at the right time, and then they'll take your bait. There's no magic to that. Using a wet towel to cover their heads, it calms them down and it doesn't take too much slime off of their bodies. And it's just a very easy way of just settling them down. I mean, look, that's taken a few seconds and you can see it's wet. And it calms the fish down lovely. There's no fighting. And you can pick them up. I said the 2 books that I've brought out are very different, and they are really, because the first book I brought out was more of a guide on how to get eel fishing and a collection of really nice trips from a lot of really great eel anglers at the time. And that was 20 years ago. There's things in there that I wouldn't do now. You know, my fishing's moved on. My rigs are slightly different. You know, the way I fish, using pellets for instance, is very different to the way I would have done then. And then I suppose I moved on, and I had some fantastic fishing in the Colne Valley, and I caught some really big fish. And I had it to myself. And I chronicled all of that. I wrote it down when I was fishing, and then I put a book together on what I was actually doing. And I actually thought that was going to be the best fishing I'd ever experienced in my life. And it probably really is to this day, even though of the fish I've just caught, fishing the Colne Valley, some of the fish I caught there, just the way some of them fish looked. I caught a 7.5 pounder there, and it was black, and it's the most perfect eel I have ever caught in my life. And I better just say that I'm not trying to get you to buy the books, because they're both out of print. My experiences in the Colne Valley were really a culmination of a long time. I'd fished it on and off for 20 years, but I'd caught eels and I'd wrote about them in my first book, but the lake changed. Something happened down there. I hadn't been there for a long time. and the bailiff phoned me up one day and said, someone's in your swim and he's caught a 9-9. I said, well, it can't be my swim. I haven't been there for about 8 years, but yeah, I said, fantastic fish. I'm coming down next weekend. So changed the venue I was going to go fishing, jumped in the car, went down there. I think it was about 2011. And I went down there, and the first night I caught a couple of fish. Then the second night I caught a couple more, and I thought, this is strange. I never used to catch fish that easy. It used to take me weeks and weeks of, to keep looking and trying to find the fish. And then on the third night, I had a 9-10. And that changed my whole perspective on the place. Suddenly, what else is in there? How big do they get? And over the next couple of years, I've fished it quite hard. Not weeks on end. I didn't stay down that time, but I would do 3 or 4 nights. I would bait up quite heavily. That would draw the crayfish in. I knew full well the eels were eating the crayfish. Once the bait had done its business on the bottom, the crayfish had stirred up the mud, the eels come in. And I caught that 9-10. I had an 8-14. My favourite ever fish, which is a 7-7. I had a 9-13 and one other really special fish and I'll always remember the fish down there. And I caught some 5-pounders and some 6-pounders from there as well. And other people come down and caught some really big fish. It was a one-off water, and I never ever thought I would find another water that could consistently throw up really big fish. It just shows you what a curveball nature can throw at you sometimes. It come to an end really at the Colne Valley when HS2 started getting involved in doing work down there. The bank I fished was, they was basically taking it out for the work they was doing. I'd won the Drennan Cup, or I'd come runner-up in the Drennan Cup. And to me, that was a fantastic achievement, almost as much as catching the fish, because I always thought the Drennan Cup was a multi-species award, and to catch it for one individual fish I thought was really, a great achievement. And I still love the place, and I go back there maybe once or twice a year with some friends and we have a go, but it's lost its appeal. And actually for the last 10 years I've been going back there and had a few trips. I've never ever caught another fish out there. So for me, that was the best eel fishing I'd ever had. I've been asked a few times, have I got a favourite bait for eel fishing? And the answer to that is no. Every lake you fish is different. The fish that in the Colne Valley, they fed a certain way. The lake I'm currently fishing, the eels have become preoccupied with eating pellets and boilies. So that's my favourite bait here. Some other lakes, worm is my favourite bait. It's just about observation on each individual water you go. Look at the hills when you do catch an eel, see what head shape it is. If it's got a wide fat mouth, it's more than likely going to be eating fish, so dead baits might be the best choice of action. There's 100 different baits they're going to eat. It's just finding out what they're preoccupied with. The lake I'm fishing now, I'm fishing pellet. I fished that on a pretty standard rig, running rig. I just band the pellets on and I fish it to a tight bait runner. And it works, and nearly all of the fish I catch that way are lip hooked. Using dead baits, I miss a lot of runs. Worm, again, that's changed. I fish it off of the bait runner to a tight line. Lots of the fish are lip hooked. Your tactics change and your baits change as you learn. And that's just how we progress. There's no secret to it. We've talked about me using tight lines basically when I'm using dead baits or worms or pellets. My aim when I'm doing that is to lip hook as many fish as I can. By using smaller hooks, you're going to do less damage. We're all fishing, we're trying to treat the fish in the best way we can. So my way now is I use small hooks, I use tight lines, and I catch big fish doing it. I mean, I've just caught an 11-pound eel on a size 6 hook. You don't need big hooks to catch big eels. That's done that fish. It was nicely hooked in the bottom lip. It's done it no damage and it swum off fine. At the end of the day, that's what we want. I'm back now fishing a lot of these coastal pits. My heart's always really been on these ones. They're wild, they're open. You get extremes of weather. I mean, today it's baking hot sunshine. Tomorrow, you could get 60-mile-an-hour winds. There's always one extreme to another, and that's what sort of makes them more attractive than a forest. And there's good fish of all sorts of species down here, and very few people take advantage of it. I don't think people realise the variation of waters you've got on the Kent coast. You've got gravel pits, you've got the Grand Union Canal. There's lots of places around here with different varieties of fish. I changed venues really once I lost HS2. That was my big fish go-to water, and after that I decided that let's go back to basics, go back to somewhere that I just enjoyed going fishing and catch some nice fish. And down here I know that I could come back here and catch some nice fish. I wasn't chasing a record. I always want to catch the biggest fish I can, but I certainly wasn't expecting that. Yeah, there's a few people that have asked me, do I think eels are actually getting bigger at the moment? I'm not sure. I think there's always been big eels out there. Maybe we've got more access to waters now where we never had. We can go back to, there was stories when John Sidney was fishing of double-figure fish. You know, we had years ago Gary Mason's 10.7, Stephen Terry's 11.2. There's always been stories of big eels. And no, I don't think they're bigger now. I think we've got more access to lakes. And I think some of the way they're feeding has changed. I mean, you've got crayfish waters where they pack on weight. You've got carp waters where they pack on weight. They're giving us opportunities we probably didn't have. But I think there's always been big eels out there. I think they're just very hard to catch. When Stephen Terry caught his 11-pound 2-ounce eel, that sent the angling world into meltdown. And I knew some eel anglers, when that happened, wanted to give up because they was always the first ones to want to catch a double. Because the record prior to that was only 8-pound something, I can't remember exactly, but then that record has stuck since 1978 to the present day till I caught my fish. So, you know, how can a record last for that amount of years? You would think someone somewhere has caught a bigger fish than that. You know, it's almost inconceivable that a fish record has taken 50 years to beat nearly. Right, it's Monday the 3rd of June. It's just coming up to 7:40 in the evening. It's been quite a nice day. I've had a couple of nice fish. I've just caught 2 4-pounders and a 6-pounder in a little 5-minute burst. All 3 rods pretty much going off at the same time. As fast as I got one fish in, the other rod was off. It was a lovely bit of fishing. And I thought, right, the eels are definitely on the grub up. So I'm going to get my phone and I'm going to video the next take, because I know that Jason Proud's asked me to do a little bit of work on pellet fishing for eels. So I know they're definitely on the feed and I know I'm going to get a run. So let's see what happens. Set the camera up, pointed it at the rod, and before I'd even press record, the middle rod bobbing smacked the blank and then dropped down and started jigging up and down. But right, okay, it's not quite what I wanted, but that'll do. So paused the video, walked over, picked the rod up. It's quite a bit of slack. Thought, oh, the fish has probably got off. Went to the camera, turned the camera back on, widened the aperture a little bit so that it could see me if the fish was there. Wound down, and blow me, the rod thumped over and it started to kick. And I thought, yeah, this is going to be a good fish. Didn't think it was going to be anything special. It didn't fight harder than the 6-pounder. It felt heavy, but sometimes they'll curl up and they'll turn on their sides and it's a weight you're pulling. the fish did fight, I'll give it that, but it fought no harder than some of the other fish I've had. It only really started to dawn on me what was happening when the fish was coming closer to the bottom of the shelf, and I had to try and ease it up into the shallow water, and it started to feel really quite heavy. Head come out the water, see the head, see the size of the mouth, see the hook in the bottom jaw. It was well hooked. I didn't think it was going to be coming off, and I thought, yeah, that's a good 6. This is going to be great. I've caught a 6-pounder on video. Then the fish actually come out of the water. It just slid up onto the surface as I put the net in, and then obviously it was straight into the arms of the net. I suddenly thought, that's a big fish. And it's hard to describe how that feels when you lift the net in and you look in there, and it's huge. It's just, you know, I'm thinking, have I beat my PB? Is this the biggest fish I've ever caught? And I've caught it from somewhere that I've only come to catch little fish. You know, it's almost ironic, really. You ask yourself, is there really fishing gods? Because if there is, they're going to be really amused at what they've just done to me. I spent 10 years searching for a big fish, and then I go and catch it when I'm not fishing for them. I bet they thought that was really funny. So I lifted this thing into like the airbed, the paddling pole, whatever you want to call it, and I looked at the fish in there, and in no uncertain terms I said to myself, that is a big fish. Now, I didn't know how big, so that's it. You're sort of panicking then. You know, it's one of the biggest fish you've ever seen, and you've caught it. So that's it. I'm rummaging me round. The fish is in there. I've moved the landing net out of the way. I've gone to my tent, got the scales, brought my scales out, my digital ones, put them on the tripod, zeroed them with my Iceland carrier bag, put the fish in there, and it went round to 11 pound 5 ounces. And I'm thinking, my scales are wrong. I'm going to have to probably change the battery. There's something wrong. It can't be that big. You know, that's over the record. You know, a record that's been there nearly 50 years. I can't have done that. I've got a set of match scales, really nice set of scales that I've had for a long time. I really only used them when I was down at the Colne Valley because I didn't think I was going to use them again. They sat in my roof box for the last 10 years. So I got them out. I went through the same process, zeroed them, Iceland carrier bag, put the fish in there, and it weighed 11 pound 3 ounces. This ain't right. Shouted to the carp angler down the bottom, asked him to come up. I said, go through the fish, tell me what that weighs. And he went, it weighs 11 pound 3 ounces. And I went, that's the British record. I said, that's heavier than the British record. And he went, is that a big eel then? Yeah. And you go to yourself, I'm grinning like a fool, walking up and down the bank like a nutter, and yeah, no one else realises what I've done. After we confirmed the weight, I thought, right, now I've got to make a few phone calls. We put the fish in the keep net. I've got a really big keep net, 24 foot, so we put the fish in there, made sure it was fine, and then I phoned. First call was to probably my best fishing mate, Nick Duffy, told him, and then he said he'd kill me if it was a bream and I was winding him up. I said, no. I said, I've caught the real deal. He said, don't worry. He said, I know Tony Kellner, I'll have him down there within an hour. Okay, it was 5 hours, but he still come, which I'll be forever grateful for, because he turned up with a bottle of champagne. Then I phoned up, I know someone on the British Record Fish Committee, so I gave them a call and said, what's the process? I've just caught this eel. And he said, right, you have to get these forms down and there's a process to do. That all had to wait to the next day when I had to phone Nick Simmons, who's the Secretary of the British Record Fish Committee. He told me they're having a meeting at the end of the week. You know, can I get the paperwork to him, witness statements, get the scales ratified? And I said, yeah, but it means I'd have to pack up fishing. And I was enjoying myself. So Anyway, I left my stuff on the bank. One of the friends said they would look after it for me, and then I had a 50-mile rush to a place to get me scales done. They checked me scales, sent it back to form. But anyway, we could go on, but I managed to get all the stuff into them before they sat. And then it's like sitting on death row. Is it enough? Are my scales going to be right? Did I get enough witnesses? Did we weigh it on enough sets of scales? There's loads of things that go through your mind when you're going through a record process. And then I'll get a message to say, it's been ratified, you're the new record deal holder. And it still hasn't sunk in. You know, I've caught the biggest recorded eel in the country, and it still hasn't sunk in. That's why I'm still by the side of the lake. The missus said to me, now you've caught that, you won't have to go anymore. But I said, someone's told me there's a bigger one in there, so I've got to.